The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet streets, where the sounds of bustling traffic faded into the distance. Among the hum of daily life, a lone dog meandered down a narrow sidewalk, its sharp eyes scanning every corner. The dog was a German shepherd, strong, intelligent, and resolute. Its coat bore the subtle wear of years spent braving the elements, a testament to its survival. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like any other stray. But this dog, named Rex, carried a story within its heart, a story of loss, loyalty, and an unyielding hope. 5 years ago, Rex had been part of a family. His owner, Daniel, a man in his early 30s with a kind face and a quiet demeanor, had adopted him as a puppy. Together, they had forged a bond that words could scarcely describe. Rex had been Daniel's shadow, accompanying him on every hike, every quiet evening by the fire, and every lazy Sunday morning. But one fateful day, during a chaotic family gathering at a park, Rex had chased after a squirrel and lost his way. Despite weeks of searching, putting up posters, and enlisting the help of friends and strangers, Rex had vanished without a trace. For Daniel, losing Rex was like losing a part of himself. The years passed, but the pain lingered. He kept Rex's favorite blanket folded on a chair in his living room, unwilling to let go of the hope that somehow, someday, they might be reunited. As fate would have it, Rex had never stopped looking for Daniel. In the 5 years since they'd been separated, he had navigated countless streets, braved harsh winters, and survived on scraps. His instincts had kept him alive, but it was his memory of Daniel, his scent, his voice, the touch of his hand, that fueled his determination. On this particular afternoon, Rex's journey brought him to a small park on the edge of town. The area was bustling with families, joggers, and children playing. Despite the lively atmosphere, Rex stayed on the fringes, his sharp ears picking up every sound. It wasn't the noise of the park that held his attention, though. It was a familiar scent carried on the breeze, faint but unmistakable. Rex froze, his ears perking up as he lifted his nose to the air. His heart raced, his body tense with anticipation. Could it be? He hadn't caught that scent in years, but it was burned into his memory. Following his instincts, Rex began to move, his steps quick and purposeful. Across the park, Daniel sat on a bench, his laptop open as he worked on a project. He looked much the same as he had 5 years ago, though there were subtle lines on his face that hadn't been there before. Life had been kind to him in many ways, but there was always a part of him that felt incomplete. Today, like most days, he wore a faint expression of longing, his mind often drifting to memories of Rex. As Rex approached, weaving through the maze of people, his movements caught the attention of passers-by. Some stopped to watch, intrigued by the determination in the dog's stride. Others simply smiled at the sight of a seemingly confident stray. Rex ignored them all, his focus solely on the man sitting on the bench. Daniel glanced up from his laptop, his brow furrowing as he noticed the dog heading straight for him. At first, he thought nothing of it. Strays often wandered through the park, looking for food or companionship, but as the dog came closer, something about it felt eerily familiar. When Rex finally stopped a few feet away, their eyes met. Time seemed to stand still. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the dog before him. "Rex," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Rex let out a soft whine, his tail wagging hesitantly as if asking, "Is it really you?" Daniel dropped his laptop onto the bench and knelt down, his hands trembling. "It can't be," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. But as Rex stepped closer, pressing his nose into Daniel's outstretched hand, there was no mistaking it. "It's you," Daniel choked out, his arms wrapping around the dog's neck. Rex leaned into the embrace, his tail wagging furiously now, his soft whines giving way to happy barks. The crowd around them paused, watching the scene unfold with a mix of curiosity and emotion. For Daniel, the world seemed to melt away. In that moment, nothing else mattered. The years of searching, the sleepless nights filled with worry, the hollow ache of loss, all of it faded as he held Rex close, tears streaming down his face. The joyful reunion between Rex and Daniel drew the attention of everyone nearby. Families paused their conversations, joggers stopped mid-stride, and children pointed with wide eyes. A quiet buzz of whispers filled the air as the crowd watched this extraordinary moment unfold. Some recorded it on their phones, moved by the raw emotion etched across Daniel's face as he clung to his long-lost companion. Daniel pulled back slightly, his hands trembling as they gently held Rex's face. "I can't believe it," he said, his voice thick with tears. "It's really you." Rex licked his hands, his tail wagging furiously as if to say, "I never gave up on you." One bystander, an older man with a kind expression, stepped forward. "That's your dog?" he asked, his voice laced with awe. Daniel nodded, his gaze never leaving Rex. "We were separated 5 years ago. I thought I'd never see him again." The man smiled softly, his eyes glistening. "It's a miracle," he said. "You can see it in his eyes. He never stopped loving you." Despite the overwhelming joy of their reunion, Daniel couldn't ignore the signs of the hardships Rex had endured. The dog's once glossy coat was dull and patchy in places, his ribs faintly visible beneath his fur. Yet despite the evidence of his struggles, Rex's spirit was unbroken. His eyes sparkled with the same intelligence and loyalty Daniel remembered. "You've been through so much," Daniel murmured, his hand gently stroking Rex's head. "But you found your way back. You're incredible." He quickly called a local vet, explaining the situation and asking for an emergency appointment. "I need to make sure he's okay," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. The vet's office, only a short drive away, welcomed them warmly. Rex sat in the back seat of Daniel's car, his head resting on Daniel's shoulder as if afraid to lose him again. Daniel drove with one hand on the wheel, the other reaching back to reassure Rex with gentle pats. At the clinic, the veterinarian, a compassionate woman named Dr. Hill, examined Rex with care. "He's a resilient one," she said, her tone both professional and kind. "He's malnourished and has a few minor injuries, but overall, he's in remarkable shape considering what he's likely been through." Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Can I take him home?" Dr. Hill nodded, offering a smile. "With proper care, he'll make a full recovery. He's lucky to have found you again." Daniel knelt beside Rex, his hands cradling the dog's face. "You're coming home, buddy," he said softly. "Where you belong." Back at Daniel's apartment, Rex stepped through the door hesitantly, his nose twitching as he took in the familiar scent of his old home. Daniel watched as Rex explored, his tail wagging as he rediscovered each corner. The moment he found his favorite blanket, the one Daniel had kept on the chair all these years, Rex let out a soft whine and curled up on it, as if claiming his place once more. Daniel sat beside him, his heart full. "I never stopped hoping for this," he said quietly. "I always knew, somehow, that you'd come back." Rex lifted his head, resting it on Daniel's lap. The years of separation melted away in that moment, replaced by an unspoken promise. They would never lose each other again. As the evening turned into night, Daniel prepared a proper meal for Rex, ensuring it was gentle on his recovering stomach. Watching Rex eat, his tail wagging with every bite, Daniel couldn't help but smile. "You deserve this," he said, "and so much more." Later, as they sat together on the couch, Daniel scrolled through photos on his phone, showing Rex pictures of their old adventures. "Remember this?" he asked, laughing softly as he pointed to an image of them hiking a mountain trail. "We'll do it again, I promise, once you're better." Rex seemed to listen, his eyes locked on Daniel's as if understanding every word. The bond between them, forged years ago and tested by time, had only grown stronger. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows, Daniel woke to find Rex lying beside him, his head resting on his chest. The sight brought tears to his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt whole again. The days that followed Rex's return were filled with quiet joy and moments of rediscovery. Daniel adjusted his routine to include Rex in every part of his day, much like he had years before. Morning jogs became a ritual again, with Rex trotting faithfully at his side, his once weakened body regaining strength with each passing day. Neighbors who had watched Daniel's life from afar began to notice the change. The man who had once carried an air of quiet sadness now smiled more, his laughter ringing out as he played with Rex in the yard. "Is that the dog you lost?" an elderly neighbor asked one morning, leaning over her fence. Daniel nodded, his hand resting on Rex's head. "Yes, he found his way back to me." The woman smiled warmly. "You're lucky. Not everyone gets a second chance like that." "I know," Daniel replied, his voice filled with gratitude. "I'm not going to waste it." Rex quickly adapted to his old new life. The apartment, though slightly different than the house they'd once shared, became a haven for him. He reclaimed his place by the couch, where he would stretch out lazily as Daniel worked from home. The once-lost German shepherd now followed Daniel from room to room, never letting him out of his sight for too long. One evening, as Daniel sifted through an old storage box, he came across a collection of Rex's toys. Faded tennis balls, a frayed rope, and a squeaky bone that had long since stopped squeaking. Pulling them out, he placed them on the floor, curious to see Rex's reaction. Rex's ears perked up immediately. He sniffed the toys tentatively, then picked up the squeaky bone and carried it to his bed. His tail wagged as he gnawed on it, and Daniel couldn't help but laugh. "You remember, don't you?" he said. "I kept them for you just in case." The small act reminded Daniel of how much Rex had been a part of his life, and how much he was again. As Rex regained his strength, Daniel planned a trip to one of their favorite hiking spots. It was a place filled with memories of long walks, breathtaking views, and quiet moments of companionship. Packing a small bag with water, snacks, and Rex's leash, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and nostalgia. When they arrived at the trailhead, Rex's reaction was immediate. He bounded forward, his tail wagging furiously as he took in the familiar scents. Daniel smiled, his heart swelling at the sight. "Ready, buddy?" he asked, clipping on Rex's leash. The hike was everything Daniel had hoped for. They moved in perfect sync, as if no time had passed since their last adventure. Rex's energy was contagious, his enthusiasm for the trail making Daniel laugh more than once. As they reached the summit, Daniel sat on a rock, the panoramic view stretching out before them. Rex lay beside him, his tongue lolling as he panted contentedly. "This is where we belong," Daniel said softly, scratching Rex behind the ears. "You and me together." Rex let out a low, happy woof, leaning into Daniel's touch. In that moment, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace. The years of separation, the pain of loss, they were behind them now. All that mattered was the bond they shared, stronger than ever. Word of their reunion continued to spread, even beyond the neighborhood. A local journalist reached out, wanting to share their story. "It's rare to see such loyalty in a world that moves so fast," she said during the interview. "What do you think kept him searching for you all these years?" Daniel glanced at Rex, who lay at his feet, his head resting on his paws. "I think he never gave up on me because I never gave up on him," he said. "That kind of love, it's not something you can explain, it just is." The article went viral, touching hearts across the community and beyond. Strangers stopped Daniel on the street to share their own stories of lost pets, while others wrote letters expressing how the story had inspired them to appreciate their own companions more. For Daniel and Rex, life settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. The bond they had shared before their separation had not only endured but deepened. Each day was a reminder of how precious their time together was, and how much they had fought to find their way back to one another. As the weeks passed, Daniel and Rex's story continued to resonate. People from all walks of life reached out, moved by the tale of unwavering loyalty and love. Letters and emails poured in, filled with gratitude and shared memories. "Your story gave me hope," one read. "It reminded me to never give up on the ones I love." The response wasn't limited to words. Families began visiting local shelters, looking to adopt pets who, like Rex, had been waiting for a second chance. Shelter staff often referenced Rex's story, sharing how the loyalty of one dog had inspired an entire community to act. Daniel, ever modest, felt humbled by the attention. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," he told a journalist during a follow-up interview. "Rex is the hero. He never stopped looking for me, even when the world seemed to forget him." Rex, of course, remained blissfully unaware of his newfound fame. To him, the world revolved around Daniel, their routine of morning jogs, cozy evenings, and spontaneous adventures. His wagging tail and joyful demeanor were proof of his contentment. One day, Daniel received an unexpected invitation. A local school had read about his story and invited him to speak to their students about loyalty, love, and resilience. "The kids would love to meet Rex," the teacher explained. "He's such an inspiration." Daniel hesitated at first, unsure if he was the right person for the job. But as he looked down at Rex, who sat faithfully at his feet, he realized the importance of sharing their story. "All right," he said. "We'll be there." The day of the visit was filled with excitement. The students gathered eagerly in the auditorium, their faces lighting up as Daniel walked in with Rex by his side. The German shepherd stood tall, his ears perked and his tail wagging as if sensing the energy in the room. Daniel spoke from the heart, recounting their journey with honesty and emotion. "Rex taught me what it means to never give up," he told the students. "Even when things seemed impossible, he kept going. And when we finally found each other again, it was like no time had passed. That kind of love doesn't fade." The students asked countless questions, their curiosity boundless. "How did he find his way back to you?" one boy asked. Daniel smiled. "I think he just followed his heart." The visit left a lasting impression on everyone involved. The students created a mural in honor of Rex, depicting a loyal dog standing tall against the backdrop of a setting sun. The image captured the essence of his journey, a testament to hope and resilience. Back at home, Daniel hung a photo of the mural in his living room, a reminder of how their story had touched so many lives. Rex seemed to sense its significance, often curling up beneath it as if claiming his place in the legacy they had built together. As time went on, Daniel and Rex's bond only grew stronger. They revisited old trails, rediscovered favorite spots, and created new memories along the way. For Daniel, life had taken on a richness he hadn't felt in years. Each moment with Rex was a gift, a reminder of how precious their time together truly was. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Daniel spoke softly. "You saved me, you know," he said, his hand resting on Rex's head. "When I lost you, I lost a part of myself, but you brought it back. You brought me back." Rex let out a soft woof, leaning into Daniel's touch. In the quiet stillness of the night, their connection felt unbreakable, a bond forged by time, tested by distance, and strengthened by love. As the years passed, Rex became more than a companion to Daniel. He was a symbol of hope, loyalty, and the resilience of the human-animal bond. Their story, once a private tale of reunion, continued to inspire others long after the initial wave of attention faded. To Daniel, the fame didn't matter. What mattered was the life he and Rex shared, one filled with love and purpose. Rex, now older but still vibrant, took each day as a gift. His fur had regained its healthy sheen, and his energy, though a bit slower, remained as spirited as ever. Together, Daniel and Rex created new traditions: Sunday mornings at the park, quiet evenings on the porch, and yearly hikes to their favorite mountain trail. These moments weren't just routines, they were reminders of the journey that had brought them back together. One evening, as Daniel prepared dinner, he glanced at Rex, who was lounging by the window. The dog's gaze was fixed on the street outside, his ears twitching at the distant sounds of the neighborhood. For a moment, Daniel was struck by the thought of how easily things could have been different, how close he had come to never seeing Rex again. He knelt beside his dog, his hand resting gently on Rex's back. "You've given me more than I could ever give you," Daniel said quietly. "You're my best friend, my family." Rex turned his head, his dark eyes meeting Daniel's with a depth of understanding that needed no words. His tail wagged softly, as if acknowledging the unspoken bond they shared. As time went on, their story became a treasured memory in the town. Whenever Daniel and Rex walked through the park, neighbors would smile and wave, their faces lighting up at the sight of the inseparable pair. For many, Daniel and Rex were more than just a man and his dog. They were a testament to the power of never giving up, of holding on to hope even when the odds seemed impossible. Daniel often received letters from strangers who had read about their journey. One, in particular, stood out. It came from a young boy who had recently adopted a stray dog. "Your story helped me see what's possible," the letter read. "I didn't think I could take care of a dog, but then I thought about Rex and how you gave him a second chance. Now, I can't imagine my life without my dog." Reading those words, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for Rex, but for the way their story had touched others. It was a reminder that their bond had created ripples far beyond what he could have imagined. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel and Rex visited their favorite trail. The air was cool and fresh, the trees adorned with vibrant hues of orange and gold. As they reached the summit, Daniel sat on a large rock, gazing out at the sprawling valley below. Rex, ever faithful, lay beside him, his head resting on Daniel's knee. "You've been my constant, Rex," Daniel said, his voice soft but steady. "Through everything, you've been here. And I promise, as long as I'm around, I'll always be here for you too." Rex let out a low, contented woof, his tail brushing against the ground in a slow, rhythmic wag. In that moment, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace, a knowing that their bond would endure, no matter what the future held. If this story of loyalty, love, and the power of hope moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's celebrate the unbreakable bonds that remind us of what truly matters in life.